I died for the first time on the 18th of August, 2006. It wasn't an especially exceptional dying, nor became it one that I predicted. It turned into truly a random act of violence that destroyed my existence, and it got here out of nowhere. We had been just enjoyable at the pub, playing some drinks after a hectic day at paintings. It became my flip to shop for a round of liquids, so I used to be looking to get the eye of the bartender. I felt someone punch me within the aspect. At first, I conceived someone had simply hit me, however then I felt the warmth and the fast move of blood pouring down my blouse. I realized then and there that I'd absolutely gotten stabbed. As a way as I will recollect, it wasn't even that painful. Nonetheless, my legs gave out below me, and I collapsed to the floor. Even then I worried extra, approximately ruining my luxurious healthy, ignoring the reality that I might be dead. Oncoming dying is funny like that. All and sundry think they're the exception, that they'll get out of anything terrible situation the universe has thrust upon them. At the least, that's what I idea, as the life drained from my body. The world around me just diminished to black, and earlier than I knew it, I had just died. Then there has been the void. At first, it was a little greater than darkness, best broken by bizarre shapes and hues within the distance. As I regained a sense of my surroundings, I was dragged closer to a new global, one without pain, suffering, or death. All there was had been people on a journey to different locations. Whether or not they had all died like me, or in the event that they weren't born, but I didn't understand. All I knew, became that I wasn't afraid anymore. The worries, the anxiety, and all my fears had been left in the back of me, a mile regarded in the distance, endlessly some distance away. I knew that might be my final vacation spot, my final cause in the quick existence I'd led. Regrettably, I in no way managed to get that a long way. I was jolted wakeful in my own mattress, soaking wet from sweat and shaking like a maniac. My hand reflectively clutched my side to cowl up the wound I'd sustained, however it wasn't there anymore. In fact, I didn't have an unmarried scratch on me. Had all of it been a dream? My telephone lit up at the bedside desk. I picked it up to find dozens of textual content messages and missed calls. "What's up, guy? We're at the pub. You coming or what?" The first message examined, dispatched at 9:43 p.m. "Hey, Rick, where in the hell are you?" The second message examined, dispatched at 10:23 p.m. Then there have been a couple of cell phone calls and another message. "I guess you fell asleep, or perhaps you're getting lucky. Something, I'll drink any other shot in your honor. Happy birthday, Rick." Then I had over 20 phone calls and a singular message that sent shivers down my spine. "For fuck's sake, pick up the damn cell phone." Something befell Danny. I without delay referred to as again. My fingers had been trembling each from anticipation and from the reminiscence of what had happened simplest a night time ago. Even supposing my death was little extra than a nightmare, I knew for positive that I'd met up with my buddies at the pub. The telephone rang 3 times, then Jake picked up. "Rick, in which you? Where the hell are you?" Jake requested with a panicked, worn-out voice. I don't realize what happened. I wager I fell asleep." I half-asked, half-stated. "Danny was given stabbed remaining night time," Jake said without listening to my clarification. "Stabbed? How?" "I don't know. Some nut process simply walked up to him and stabbed him within the facet." I nearly dropped my smartphone in surprise. Danny was attacked similarly to me, in exactly the identical place. 1,000 thoughts rushed through my thoughts, however, fear fast became my important difficulty. Is he okay? He's nevertheless in a surgical operation. They're best letting his spouse recognize approximately, wait, right here she comes. Jake placed his telephone down, but I may want to nonetheless listen to the muffled sound of their dialogue. Danny's wife regarded me upset, but I couldn't make out the phrases. "Jake?" I asked. He's useless. Danny's useless." The following couple of moments become a blurry haze of records. We'd all recognized Danny considering that we have been children, and now he changed into simply gone. The assassin by no means even made it out of the pub. Apparently, he was given a shot by one of the buyers as he attempted to assault some other visitor. Still, I just couldn't shake the sensation that I used to be supposed to die that night. Regardless of what happened, time marched on without answers. Some of our coworkers end after Danny's demise, looking to hopelessly flow on. I didn't blame them, I also wished far. I never even told them what I skilled that night, it wouldn't have helped them anyway. A year passed, and I hardly spoke to any of my friends. I began to get some semblance of normalcy in the wake of Danny's demise, but that could all come to and give up on the 18th of August, 2007. My birthday had arrived yet again, and I had actually no intention of celebrating it. Rather, I referred to as sick to work, sold a bottle of whiskey, and spent the day playing video games. By the time day had given manna to night, I'd almost finished the bottle. Even as an alternatively massive man, the alcohol had hit me hard. At around 9 o'clock, I just passed out on the mattress, expecting a terrible hangover in the morning. I simplest awoke around midnight, once I heard the front door forcefully wreck open, accompanied by footsteps and whispers. I tried to rise up, still drowsy from the alcohol. As I took one step out from my bed, I slipped and got here tumbling down onto the floor. It produced a large crash, loud sufficient to alert whichever intruders had broken in. "I notion you stated no person could be domestic," a man said angrily. "Don't worry approximately it, I'll go deal with them." The footsteps moved quickly in my route. I attempted to fasten the door, but they have been too rapid, kicking it open and knocking me again to the floor. A masked guy entered my room, keeping onto a gun. He only spoke an unmarried sentence to me before pointing the weapon at me and pulling the trigger. "You need to have stayed quiet." Unluckily, the person becomes a terrible shot. He geared toward my head but had hit me in my throat as an alternative. There I lay, drowning in my very own blood as I desperately gasped for air. I couldn't crawl away, and I couldn't call for assistance. I died on my bedroom floor, on my birthday, just as I had a year earlier. Once the existence ultimately tired from my body, and the god-awful ache ceased, I was again within the global past. I walked via the identical, colorful measurement that lay simply on the brink of lifestyles. I prominent the shapes and colors as they handed. Within the distance, I noticed a tree with branches stretching forever and ever a ways from its trunk. From every department dangled someone, actual however no longer present in our international. I wanted to go to them, however, that wasn't my vacation spot. Because just like earlier, I'd awake on my very own mattress, unharmed by way of the events from the preceding nighttime. My telephone buzzed, and I used to be full of unfathomable dread. I nevertheless couldn't pretty believe it, but I began to keep in mind that someone might take my vicinity in demise. "Hiya? Rick, it's Dad, your mom, she surpassed away the ultimate night." A lump formed in my throat. I knew what changed coming next, however, I had to ask, "How? What befell?" "The police say it was a housebreaking gone wrong." "I don't recognize you, I was operating late." "I must have been there." The discussion trailed off from there. My dad turned distraught and could barely form coherent sentences. He blamed himself for no longer being there, however, I knew the truth. It changed into my fault. All through the subsequent 2 months, he fell right into a deep depression. I couldn't blame him, he just lost the love of his life. I moved in with him, simply to assist him to select the portions. He placed on a robust face, trying his high quality to keep the ship afloat. However, I ought to tell how close he turned into the just damaged down. If only I'd been there. "It wasn't your fault, Dad. Had you been there you would probably have gone too. You don't recognize that. But I did know due to the fact the burglars weren't ever presupposed to visit my mother and father's residence. They have been purported to kill me. I had to come easy, I needed to permit him to recognize the reality. But how ought I? Half 12 months handed, and the secret ate at me. After everything that had happened, I still didn't understand how to provide an explanation for it. Still, I decided it became time to proportion my curse. "Dad, are we able to speak?" "Yeah, what's occurring?" he requested with an involved expression on his face. He knew me nicely, and he should tell a heavy burden was weighing me down. I commenced by telling him about my first dying, all the way down to the smallest detail. Of root, it matched the entirety that humans had witnessed within the pub that night, even the place of the stab wound. I told him Danny had taken my place in dying, and that I felt guilty. Clearly, he changed into skeptical at the start. But then I informed him approximately my mom. I didn't spare him any information. I told him in which I'd gotten shot, that the door had been broken down, and that there have been 2 robbers. Each element matched perfectly all the way down to the letter. I'm so sorry, Dad. It changed into my fault. I killed her. He simply sat there in silence, processing what I'd simply told him. It wasn't your fault. I used to be harassed. There wasn't a single ounce of anger in his phrases, simplest overwhelming empathy. How will you say that? She mustn't die. He mulled over his subsequent phrases carefully before speaking. You didn't do anything incorrect, Rick. You simply went about your existence, and these things happened to you. I don't recognize why you've been added lower back, or even how. However, you're now not guilty for what's completed to you. So you consider me? I requested. He nodded and embraced me in a hug. Unexpectedly, I wasn't by myself globally anymore. A person knew what turned into going on to me. What if it happens once more? Then we'll get through it together. He stood by means of these words at the same time as my subsequent birthday rolled around. That demise turned into tamer. I just slipped inside the shower and broke my neck. The final concept that went via my mind as I left the arena for a 3rd time changed into, how fucking cliche. Another time, I woke up in my bed. I called out for my dad, ensuring he became nevertheless alive, horrified that he may have taken my location. I couldn't even breathe till he came speeding to my facet, asking what had happened. I broke my neck, however I'm satisfactory, I think. It took a while earlier than I found out who had taken my vicinity at that point. However, once I heard that my boss had died, something broke interior me. He changed into the kindest man I'd ever met, and just like myself, he'd slipped and broken his neck. That was the final straw. It wasn't a few weird coincidences I may want to brush off, nor a premonition. I determined then and there that I couldn't stay with the obligation. I had to place a stop to it, although it meant giving up my very own lifestyle. I figured that if I took manage over my personal fate and killed myself outside of my very own birthday, perhaps I may want to prevent greater people from losing of life. First, I left behind a protracted letter to my father, explaining why I'd chosen to go away. I couldn't face him in man or woman. I knew he'd just strive to talk me out of it. However, it becomes something I had to do. I couldn't allow any greater people to die on my behalf. Lamentably, destiny is a fickle wench. Irrespective of how tough I tried, I just couldn't stop my personal existence. I tried striking, however, the rope broke. Then, I attempted to shoot myself, but the gun jammed. While that failed, I attempted to pressure my car right into a tree, but I someway survived that as well. Any attempt became met with failure. All I could do became await my subsequent birthday and permit a person to die in my region. Irrespective of how oftentimes I attempted, I couldn't die. I was a slave to the future, and it was destroying me. In 2009, I was hit by using and under the influence of an alcoholic driver, and my female friend took my place. In 2010, I drowned, and my type of neighbor had to go through that loss of life. In 2011, I died from a brain aneurysm, which ended up killing my aunt. And so on, and so forth. Each year I'd die, and someone close to me would take my area. I stored attempting to find a way out, however, fate wouldn't have it. Years went by, and on the 18th of August, 2019, I died for the 14th time. I'd already fallen sick a week earlier, much to the medical doctor's confusion. In step with each and every laboratory cost, I was first rate, but I kept getting sicker. My father and I both knew my time become near, but we also knew I'd be forcefully introduced back. Then, at midnight on my birthday, my heart just gave out. I used to be jolted awake in my very own mattress, and the illness became little extra than a distant memory. Dad? I referred to it as out. No reaction. I got away from the bed and referred to as his call again. I was met with silence. I didn't have to call out a 3rd time. I already knew what had come about. I carefully walked into his room, horrified at what I knew could come. He became useless, simply long passed from a coronary heart attack. He'd taken my vicinity, and I ought to do not anything to save him. The funeral got here and went in a blur. The only substantial factor became the lacking seats from those who had handed before him. Some of them had lived their own lives and died as nature meant, but a number of them had been speculated to live on. Alternatively, they'd simply taken my location in dying. I inherited a range of factors from my father. Among them, I discovered a letter addressed to me. It looked instead worn, so I ought to tell he'd written it a long time ago. Dear Richard, this day is your birthday, and it has officially been a year due to the fact that your mom surpassed you. Even as I pass over her substantially, I'm thankful for nonetheless have you ever round. I recognize that if she became given the selection, she could need you to live. I experienced the equal manner. We each recognized that I would one day take your region in death. By no means doubt that I might luckily give my existence if it approaches that you can stay. You didn't select this curse, so by no means blame yourself. Simply do what each person is meant to do. Admire the people around you because you never realize which day is probably their last. I really like you. Dad. Since I read that letter, I've been seeking a way out. My father might want me to live behind, but how can I stay on, knowing that I'm taking a person's location? I've long on the grounds that left town, living on my own in a cabin somewhere far from humans. With a bit of luck, if I haven't anyone left that cares for me, humans will prevent demise. As a minimum until I can figure out no longer simplest the way to die, but the way to definitely stay dead. I'm sorry.